here in San Francisco with Julie Matthews. Julie is a certified nutrition specialist, consultant, and a specialist in autism. So we're incredibly lucky to have Julie with us today. And today we're going to talk about vegetables.
Yes.
And trying to get vegetables into our children, because we all know how difficult it is, because most of our children are picky eaters.
Absolutely. And so what we're going to do is to create some vegetable dishes that have good texture and good flavor that kids actually like. It's really important to get good nutrition in, and so we just need to find ways that work with them.
And once you start on this, because again, a lot of parents say that my child will only eat this or will only eat that, and that's it.
Right.
Nothing else I can get down them. But there are ways of getting new foods into these children.
Absolutely. Firstly, I find that just doing a diet like the GFCF, a gluten-free, casein-free diet, often will open up their diet over a little bit of time just because they're getting those addictive foods out of the diet. But also, we have to think about what is it they might not like about it. A lot of them have sensory issues, so the texture, we need to make it a good texture, and also some good flavor.
Okay, so today we are going to make...
Yes, we're going to make vegetable latkes.
And I have to admit, I didn't know what a ladka was, so...
So a ladka is a Jewish specialty food, and it's basically like a potato pancake, more or less, kind of a hash brown.
Okay, fabulous. So what's the first thing we do?
So we are going to start with some zucchini. This recipe is actually starch-free and grain-free. Instead of using potatoes like you would for a regular latke, we're going to make it without potato for people that don't handle starches very well. So in this case, we're going to use zucchini as our first ingredient, and then we're going to add some onion for flavor, some eggs, and some cauliflower that's actually going to work as sort of the starchy potato part of it.
And why would starch be a problem for some? I mean, I haven't actually heard that starch could be a problem for kids with autism.
So for some kids, it can feed the bad bacteria or other pathogens in the gut. And so by removing it, we help to help with that process and also heal up the gut. It depends. A lot of children, as long as it's gluten-free starch, they can handle it just fine. But others really need to avoid potatoes and corn and other things as well.
And again, by going to a sort of specialist doctor or a nutritionist, you might be able to get those results. What we don't want is parents taking their children willy-nilly off everything.
Yes, you don't need to. A couple things I think this diet is good for, or this particular recipe. One is you get more vegetables in if you take the potato out, and also get them used to new, they usually love potatoes, so make it new and different. In fact, if you have a particularly picky eater, you could do half potato at first to give it a little bit of that starchier feel, and then over time. But most people do just fine. However, there are people that do diets like the specific carbohydrate diet that wouldn't do starches, and in that case, they would leave the potato out.
So first thing.
So first thing, we're going to start with the zucchini that I've already shredded. The most important part of this process is making sure that we wring all of the liquid out. We don't want it too soggy. So what you want to do actually is, what I do, and I would just squeeze.
You're wringing out all the liquid.
Yes, and we're going to put it in our bowl. You can also even use a kitchen towel or a paper towel and blot it. But this is actually a really important step of the process, because if it's too wet, it's just not going to have the right texture.
Okay.
And it will take too long to cook. So we really want to make sure that we do that. So that's step number one.
And then when we've got this in here, we've got onions in as well.
Yes, exactly. So you can actually, if you want, that's the one onion, just finely diced up.
It's going to go in here with the zucchini.
Yes, you can put that in right now.
See, now, most parents would think there's no way this is going to go. I'm interested to see what it looks like.
Right.
Because Billy, when he's 15 years old, my son with autism, now he will eat anything. But I mean, it wasn't that long ago before this was completely out of the question.
Yes. And I think a lot of times it's because, well, it can be a variety of things, but for a lot of kids, it can really, the texture, the kind of crispy texture, really goes a long way for kids liking that. So you can see wrung all of this liquid out of this. And then what we're going to do is we're going to take our cauliflower that we pre-steamed, and I steamed it for about 20 to 25 minutes. I want it pretty soft so I can smash it, you can see, with a fork, and it's going to give it that nice kind of potatoey look and feel.
So why do you recommend steaming rather than boiling?
You could do either way. I mean, steaming will keep more nutrients, will retain more nutrients if you steam it rather than boil it. So that's usually why I would do that. But you really could, if you were already doing something else, you could do it either way.
I see. So that's starting to actually look like mashed potato in an odd sort of way.
Yes.
So we've got zucchini, we've got onion, and we're going to put this in.
Yes, and we're going to also put those eggs in there. So if you want,
Shall I crack the eggs in?
That'd be great.
Literally just crack them in.
Yep.
So these are, I take it, you're recommending organic eggs.
I always recommend organic eggs, but also even if you could do a pastured egg, which is a little bit better, sort of a free-range egg that's eating bugs and doing
So an
chicken.
organic free-range egg.
Yes, exactly. We call that, they wouldn't be grass-fed because they don't particularly eat grass. They would be more what we call pastured. So they'd go outside, they'd get sunlight, they'd eat bugs. That really makes the yolks nice and orange and really helps to increase the nutritional value.
So rather than just, because some parents say, well, I can't afford it, it's far too expensive, you're recommending that they buy really, really good eggs and eat fewer of them.
Exactly. You can, I think that there's certain things you don't want to compromise on. And to me, eggs is one of the things kids will eat, and they have a lot of nutritional value. So make them as nutrient dense of a choice as you can. It's really worth the extra money.
My son used to crave eggs, absolutely crave them all the time. And somebody once said to me, if your child is craving a food, that food could be bad for them.
Right.
Is that something you come
across? Yeah, it seems sort of backwards that they would like the things that are problematic, but sometimes the brain does release certain chemicals, endorphins and things like that, that make you really crave the food or feel good with the food. Sometimes the foods that we actually need to avoid. So
or if it was, and then the other thing, of course, is that he was craving eggs because he needed something in that.
Well, that's very likely too. So that's the hard part for parents, I suppose, is to distinguish. Do they do well after they eat the food? Did he do well after the eggs, or was he kind of running around really hyper and not feeling so well or upset? Or
that's a good point. So for parents to chart the behavior of their child if they're desperate for certain food.
Because we don't want to take out a food. If they're really craving a food, maybe they really need that food. So we don't want to just remove everything that they love, assuming that it's all bad.
And clearly, if it was eggs, is something that's pretty good for you. But if it was something like
cookies,
then we know why he's craving that.
Or cheese or something.
Or sugar. Okay, so that looks nice and mashed up.
Yep. So you can see how nice and mashed it is. We are going to add this to our mixture here. And then we are going to just go ahead, mix this all up. I'm going to, you want to grab here some salt right here, if you want to just...
Okay, let's talk about salt. Because
yes.
Why are we putting salt in our children's food?
Yes. Salt actually is good. We need sodium, we need some of the trace minerals, but you need a good quality salt.
Because this salt is pink.
Yes, that's because there's minerals still in it. This happens to be a Himalayan crystal salt. There's sea salts, Celtic sea salts, all sorts of different things. But I like to get a salt that often has color to it, because usually that'll mean there's some trace minerals, rather than more often than not, if it's white, it's been stripped of the important minerals.
So basically, most people, when they're buying salt, just grab it off a supermarket shelf. That's not good salt.
Right. I mean, and if you can think about, sometimes there's even aluminum in that salt because they want it to keep from caking and sticking together.
Wow.
So they can use all sorts of strange additives and things in salt. It's not always just straight salt. So you want to get a salt that's free of all that junk, but also has some good nutrition. And so that's why we have.
But how will they? So they stay away from the bleached white stuff, and they look for particular like Himalayan salts.
Exactly.
Right. Okay.
Yes, exactly. And you can find that at a lot of markets today.
Okay. So how much of this are we going to put in?
So I just put a big pinch.
Pinch?
Yeah, I like to do things by feel more than perfect. And then if we wanted, we could add some pepper or other spices to it.
Okay.
And otherwise, we've got everything we need. And now we are going to just heat up our pan here.
So the pan's nice and hot, and you're going to put
Yes.
some ghee
Yes.
in the pan, so you can cook with ghee.
Exactly. So now that it's hot, we're going to cook with some ghee.
And you're just literally putting a dollop in there.
Yes, exactly. Enough to coat the bottom, keep it from sticking. Turn the heat maybe down a little bit. And then we're going to, we can do this a variety of ways, but...
Literally wallop it in.
Yep. Just like a little pancake here.
And do you find that children like this? This is something that we've had feedback that's something that's gone down really well.
Exactly, yeah. It's great because I really think that the texture has a lot to do with it. I also think that some salt, if we use a little salt in a conscious way, it's got some good flavor. It's got the onions, which gives it some good flavor. And kids tend to really like it.
Okay, it's good.
I think that sometimes kids are super picky eaters, but sometimes we also, I think, need to give them a little bit benefit of the doubt and try some new things. understanding what it is they might not like about it. So if it's the texture, let's try to make it crispy.
I mean, my husband always says, look, at the end of the day, they will eat when they're hungry. So you sometimes have to be, you feel like you're being a really mean mother because my child hasn't eaten. When we took Billy off all his food and started the gluten and casein-free diet, he didn't eat for 2 days.
Wow.
Nothing. And then eventually, because he was just addicted to milk and wheat cereal. That was it, that's all he ate. But in the end, he did. He ate it. So they're not going to starve themselves.
Usually that is true. Usually if we give them good food, they'll eat it. Although you do have to be careful occasionally. Occasionally you do get the holdout. So I'd say always work with somebody.
Okay, so now they're ready to be flipped over.
Yes, exactly. So now what we do is we want to flip them and give them a little more time. I might have, maybe you'll have to play around with, we'll have to play around with how much to cook them and how brown you want them. But
normally with this thing, I always find when I'm cooking something like this, the first looks like your first pancake's always a disaster, and then the more as you cook more and more, they get better.
Yeah, and that I think as the egg starts to settle with it sticks together. You'll notice that this one's already sticking together much better. Once they've sort of held their shape, you can see how. We'll just take that little piece off. You can see how nicely they're firm and holding together.
So, as a suggestion for parents, you would serve it like this with possibly something else.
Yes, so you could serve this with your meal. So if you're having roasted chicken, maybe with some rice or something like that, you could do your vegetable on the side like this. You could serve them with a snack. It's just whatever you'd like, but they just really go along with everything.
So there you have it. These are vegetable Latkas. Latkas? Latkas.
A little hot. Be careful.
Hot.
You see how the crisp coating on there?
They're really nice.
Yeah, and if you do them, if you have kids that are really finicky, make them thinner and really wring that water out. I think that if, I always learn something as you're cooking something, and really, we could probably have wrung a little bit more of the water out. They would have been a little bit more starchy.
It tastes a little bit, it's like a sort of omelette, a mini omelette.
Yeah, exactly. You really don't taste the vegetable that much, Let's
have another bit. No, it's really good. Okay, Philip, now if you want to get some of Julie's recipes, all of the recipes that we're talking about are in her book. She has this book here, which is full of gluten and casein-free and other special diet recipes in there as well.
Exactly. In Cooking to Heal, I have a variety of different special diets from a specific carbohydrate, as I mentioned, and a variety of others. But everything is all gluten and dairy-free.
And also, she has another book, which is Nourishing Hope, and in that has a lot of advice for parents with autism.
What good nutrition looks like.
A lot of what we were talking about today.
Exactly.
And
the background.
recipes are all in there. So thank you, Julie. And next week we'll be back with some more recipes. We'll see you next week.